Genesis HMAS deconstruction engine online.
For decades, the Brazilian national team was practically untouchable. 5 World Cup victories, a roster that read like mythology. They built an aura on the pitch that terrified opponents and captivated the globe. By the 2000s, that dominance evolved into a massive global export business. Brazilian clubs became factories for high-value talent, generating billions of dollars by sending superstars to the richest leagues on earth. But look closely at the domestic clubs actually producing these players, and you find a severe contradiction. Despite sitting on the most lucrative talent pipeline in the sport, Brazilian clubs are drowning in massive, paralyzing debt. To understand why, we have to look at the hidden architecture running almost every major team in the country, the associative model. This diagram shows the contrast. On the left is a standard professional corporation, run by hired executives. On the right is the associative model. These are non-profit organizations, governed entirely by elected committees of passionate, unpaid fans. This structure subordinates the professional demands of a multi-billion-dollar global industry to the internal politics of amateur fan groups. If you ask club managers why they ran out of money, they almost always point their fingers at Brasilia, specifically citing the 1998 Pelé Law. This piece of legislation abolished the old pass system, a highly restrictive practice that effectively allowed clubs to hold a player's career hostage, dictating where they could play and for how much. According to the managers, losing that pass system stripped clubs of their leverage overnight. They claim it impoverished domestic teams and left them completely at the mercy of wealthy European buyers. Blaming the law hides a deeper truth. The financial decay was already well underway before the first draft of the legislation even reached Congress. If we look at the financial records, the timeline of ruin actually begins a full decade before the Pelé Law was ever drafted. The true catalyst hits in the late 1980s. Global star signings exploded, and the creation of the Clube dos 13 dramatically centralized and multiplied television revenues for Brazil's major clubs. When sudden wealth hit these amateur managers, massive TV money instantly converted into a faster-flowing pipeline of uncontrolled spending. Desperate to secure re-election, managers took advances on future rights, locking clubs into abusive interest rates and an accelerating cycle of debt. They managed to keep this snowballing deficit a secret for years because audited financial statements were not mandatory for Brazilian football clubs until around 2006. Operating in total darkness, these elected committees routinely rubber-stamped their own balance sheets. They concealed hundreds of millions of reais in hidden, unrecognized liabilities from the public and their own members. These clubs didn't fall victim to a sudden legislative change in the late 90s. They actively built their own ticking time bombs through decades of deliberate financial malpractice, operating with zero accountability. Early on, the associative model and sport shared a symbiosis. Today, that structure has mutated into an outright parasite, aggressively feeding off the football operation. Despite generating record-breaking transfer fees and massive broadcasting deals, the professional football market's revenue is actively siphoned away from the pitch. This chart breaks down exactly where that capital goes. You can see the massive revenue generated by the football department being aggressively sliced up and dragged into buckets for non-core associative activities. Things like sprawling social clubs, Olympic sports divisions, and bloated, overpaid back offices. Amateur club presidents knowingly divert these funds to sustain unprofitable social sectors for a simple political motive. Keeping their voting members happy is the only way they maintain their grip on power. Trying to manage a highly complex, multi-million-dollar global enterprise using a committee of unpaid, politically motivated fans inevitably leads to institutional sabotage. But there is severe emotional friction here. Passion is the absolute lifeblood of the sport, and the associative model survives because fans fiercely believe the club belongs to them. That passion built these legendary institutions. But without the immediate implementation of cold, professional, and accountable governance, that same passion will be the fire that burns Brazilian football to the ground.